Peck and Oaks, or maybe Oaks and Peck, may sound like a classic men's clothing store, but they're actually the two men behind the rebirth of a classic literary venture called the Evergreen Review. They're also our two next guests. But before we introduce them, here's their Kickstarter campaign promo.
The Evergreen Review shattered norms when it arrived in 1957, introducing provocative innovators such as Susan Sontag, Denise Levertov, William S. Burroughs, Allen Ginsberg, Alexander Trocchi, and Kenzaburo Oe, among many others, to a broader American public. Evergreen was a cultural weapon, shaping the outlook of a generation in a way no television show or magazine came close to doing. The U.S. government thought so too. The Postmaster General sued its publisher on various grounds, but Evergreen stood firm against censorship. It took an early stance against the Vietnam War and in defense of civil rights. 60 years later, we again find ourselves in need of powerful voices to rally against injustice, intransigence, duplicity, and plain old greed. In 2017, Evergreen returns, revived, under the direction of Dale Peck, John Oakes, Calvin Baker, and Zia Jaffrey. Evergreen's debut issue features a diverse and far-flung cast of writers and artists, including acclaimed masters like Jeffrey Renard Allen and Gary Indiana, new voices like Francis Bedomo and Jade Sharma, and international figures like Japanese-German writer Yoko Tawada and Mexican novelist Alvaro Enrique. The new Evergreen builds on its predecessor's fearless exploration of the political and aesthetic outer limits. It seeks out work that expands our understanding of how people actually live in the world and the ways their truths can be expressed. Join us and help resurrect this powerful, independent voice.
It's certainly not too late to help join them resurrect that voice, but I suspect we'll get into that in a second, right?
We just might.
Get your machines at the ready to go over to their Kickstarter campaign. But right now, to bring us up to date on Son of Evergreen Review, we're joined by its publisher, John Oakes. Welcome to BK Live, sir.
Thank you, Brian.
And we're also happy to have Dale Peck, the editor-in-chief over at the Evergreen Review, at our table. Thank you.
So just to make sure we touch on it and get it out of the way, tell us what you'd like to tell us about this Kickstarter campaign that we didn't already hear in that great promo.
Well, we're at 90% of our goal.
All right.
And we just need a little
push, little more.
bit of energy to get to the 100% mark.
Okay.
So for everyone who couldn't quite get it together to make that WNYC subscription drive, you're feeling like a heel now.
Our tote bags are nicer.
Exactly.
Do we have
tote bags. What else do we? We don't have tote bags.
However,
what do we have?
However, we have T-shirts. We have facsimile editions of the first 3 Evergreens, which came out in
This was number 1 that we're looking at now. This was the one that started it all.
That's right.
So I'm just going to borrow from the woman who was just here. In times like these, why revive the Evergreen Review?
Well, I think, Dale, you want to talk about that?
You know, when Barney started, the first Barney Rossett was the publisher of Grove Magazine, or Grove Press, and also of Evergreen Review. And when he started it, he gave this interview, and he was really great. He said it just felt like there was a need for it. And he said if you say something more specific than that, you run the risk of locking it too tightly in. And it seemed to me like, you know, there's still a need for certain perspectives that aren't out there. The original Evergreen, it's incredibly aesthetically forward. I mean, with writers like Samuel Beckett and Jean Genet and William S. Burroughs and Allen Ginsberg and everything, but it was also deeply, deeply politically engaged as well, and there was never a trade-off. I often feel like there's a trade-off, you know, when you pick up certain magazines, you know, the politics are really fantastic, but the writing is kind of, you know, reportorial and all that. You pick up other magazines and the artistry maybe is amazing and knocks your socks off, but it's all a little kind of pie in the sky and canonical. I hope that we can sort of merge those two things together so there's never a sacrifice between what people want to say and how they say it, which maybe leads to a more, you know, individual, personal, and then hopefully, you know, relevant expression.
John, tell us about the rest of the evolution. We started with the beats and such, and then where did we go from there?
So I think Dale really got to the heart of why we're bringing it back. It has an unmatched history, literary and political. It was always involved with censorship battles, and as you might have caught in the video, you know, the U.S. Postmaster General tried to shut it down. And we actually had been talking about getting things going starting about a couple of years ago, and Dale and I really got going things into gear maybe a little under a year ago. But of course, with the last 6 months, it seems more relevant than ever.
Well,
and
you're also circumventing the Postmaster General this time, because you're going to beam it to my device now,
right,
yes?
That's right, that's right. So we're online, we're free online, and we don't have plans for print except for the facsimile editions, and then we also have, we're doing we have a small book line called Fox Rock, which is named after Samuel Beckett's birthplace.
Right.
Some of the
And
greatest
that's where you do
hits
just some of their individual works.
Yeah, these are a few samples, some of the early Evergreen authors, Beckett, Marguerite Duras, and we're going to be doing a book with Robert Coover, who is also an Evergreen writer.
So if Bill Clinton was swatting away Hillary right now on their trip around the Mideast, would this thing be in front of me now? Would there be a need for it still, like the current situation?
That's a good question.
Well, in the first issue, it was funny. It was entirely done before the election came out, but then just mostly because of raising money, it took a while to get it out, and so by the time we were getting ready to put it out, the context had completely changed, and as a consequence, a couple of the pieces were sort of seriously rewritten, and then you frame the issue differently. For the second issue, now we're living in this hell that we're living in right now, and so I think we're responding to it much more directly. So we've commissioned a piece by the great essayist Yasmin Nair to sort of specifically talk about the ways in which the person whose name I can't bring myself to say somehow became our president, and pointing out that it's not like a mistake or like something went wrong or a technicality, but this is a trend in American culture, and then ways in which we can respond to it. And she's an amazing polemicist. I think the essay, which I have not seen yet, it's we commissioned it from her, is going to be amazing. But then we're also responding in different ways. I mean, right now there's such an attack on who is an American and what makes an American and how an American should be, and so one of the things that zeroing in, because we're a magazine, we deal with words. I've invited a bunch of people who are writing in English as a second language to submit, and I'm specifically looking for people who are not maybe 100% fluent or something like that, in the ways in which they're appropriating our language rather than, as is tradition with English, going out and appropriating other people's culture. They're taking our language and using it to get their own message out about their own cultures, their own identities, and all that stuff. So I hope it's speaking more directly to what's going on. The first issue, I really love it, but it was one of those things, November 9th, and I thought, God, we should just start over.
Right.
But
it's already
the work was too good to do that.
Right. No, and it was seriously rewritten, as you mentioned, which I really love. I love that term. John, so you guys also have a history of really kind of like putting people on and giving them a platform. I think you guys really kind of launched the careers of some of the beats. Who's somebody else that you guys are really excited about?
Melody, it's really, well, in terms of new authors, and Dale is the editor-in-chief, so he's really the person to credit for this. And before I mentioned, I was going to mention Jade Sharma, whose work I'd never read before Dale put her on to Evergreen
the first
Review.
novel is out. It's called Problems. It's really amazing. You should read it.
Awesome.
The excerpt in the magazine is the first chapter, so you can get your teaser that way. But she's a phenomenal writer.
Few seconds left.
So we have I'm going to steal it to send people back to the Kickstarter, so please finish us up.
Nice. No, I was just going to say that what really makes it exciting is that Dale Peck is the editor, and he has, I'm not just being nice, but he has an incredible reputation, and that's what I think the editorial drive behind the new Evergreen is what makes it exciting for me.
All right, you can see Dale Peck and the rest of them over at Evergreen Review, but check out their Kickstarter right now. Don't miss out.
4 days left.
You can have the facsimile of the original in your library. People will come over, they know you're not a dummy. You put it on a shelf.